I'm going on 80 and I just started taking it.
I've done classic style.
It's the greatest thing you can do.
Style, and I used to snowboard, but when you land a hard on ice on your knees and you're like, oh, that's enough, I've had enough.
It's harder to get up.
What? Me? I'm 64.
I'm 78. So,
My husband's there, yeah. See, it comes with the gardens.
yeah,
And they've
I'll
had
tell
big
you.
gardens that turn out to be 78, just like you and Jerry.
Well, I have
Hi,
a
Jerry.
yoga trainer and I have a physical training also. So I would two different. On Wednesday, they damn near killed me because I do yoga in the morning and the training and after.
Yeah. That's a challenge.
Yoga's way to go.
Welcome to the Monday, October 23rd meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission. What is your pleasure regarding the minutes?
Motion approved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any further discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Green Bay Press Gazette. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or are only providing information in this matter, and your comments or concerns. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes. We will now open the public hearing on the request to amend the City of Green Bay Smart Growth 2022 Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map for properties located from 1335 through 1369 East Mason Street and 526 South Baird Street from medium-intensity retail office housing to commercial. Submitted by Dan Rarity, Division 4, on behalf of Dan Goben, Goben Cars.
Do we get to hear from the plan department first?
We could, yes.
I can give you a brief overview, I guess.
That would be
Yes.
really nice. Thank you, Paul.
There's one correction there. We're not purchasing 526 Baird Street. That's not part of the deal, just the Mason Street properties.
So I can clarify that point as well. So this is a comprehensive plan request to change the future land use in the 1300 block of East Mason Street. And those properties are kind of highlighted in red here. We've included 1369 as well as 526 just to kind of square off the block. We don't want to leave a remnant piece, so that's why we took our own initiative to do that. So there are 5 dwellings. They're called the Blue Homes that front on East Mason Street. They're very noticeable here. Goldman Cars has a dealership on the corner, and then 526 is a single-family home. So we're along East Mason Street between Baird and Irwin. There's a variety of land uses here. Walgreens is on the corner. There is an auto repair south of the site, and there's some single and two-family dwellings south of East Mason Street. Bellin has an off-site parking lot here. It's been there for a number of years. This is the former Roosevelt School site. And then to the north along Chicago Street is mainly single-family homes in that particular area. So again, this is a request to change the city's comprehensive plan from medium-intensity retail office or housing to commercial. And that will facilitate the request from Dan Goben to put in a dealership lot affecting these 5 properties, again, not affecting 526.
Thank you.
And if I could, just for clarity's sake, this is just to change, to amend the plan to commercial.
Correct.
And it would be a later meeting at which, were that to pass, we would be considering the zoning request, right?
This is the general land use that will require future zoning to highway commercial to establish a car lot.
Thank you.
What would happen to 526?
526 would just, if it's approved, the land use would, future land use would change to commercial. There'd be no change of their current zoning.
But it could remain residential?
It could, sure.
Okay. And And that's not any problem home or anything like that, or any problem?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I didn't see any complaints on that problem.
Okay.
Thank you. The floor is now open if any interested party wishes to speak. Dan Goldman?
Yep, I'm Dan Gobin from Dan Gobin Cars and also Dan Gobin Trucks. I brought the site plan just to point out some basic things, if it's okay. Should I adjust it more this way?
That'd be great.
Okay. To start with, the biggest thing I really want to point out is, you know, we're not just proposing a truck lot here. There's an existing truck lot right here that's licensed, selling trucks right now. I have employees in there working right now. That's a done deal. What we're proposing is to add on to an existing lot. And essentially here, if you drive by right here right now, and I've heard a few complaints where someone might say, hey, you know, we don't want another parking lot. I assure you, if you drive by, it is a retail lot. There's American flags on every vehicle. There's stickers on everything. Pretty much everything is late model, low mileage. We almost won't resell it unless it's really a good trade-in. Secondly, on the new property here that I've made an offer subject to approval, we're asking for 0 variance. There's 15 feet of green space here, okay? We have landscaping right here, and this is all to the city specs. Dan from Dimension 4 helped me with this, where he pretty much did it. Okay. And then, you know, the biggest thing is I really want to point out also is here there was 4 entrances. We closed off 2. Here there's there's 4 or 5 entrances here. What we're proposing is closing all of them off, so the only entrances are here and here. So I think we'll have a lot less congestion coming into those properties as opposed to having something busier there. Lighting, I wanted to discuss that too. We're not going to light it up like a Lemieux Toyota. It's going to be reasonable lighting. Okay, if you drive by Dan Gobin Trucks right now and you look up, I assure you it won't blind you, and there's not an excess amount of poles. Another thing that I think would be a concern too for any neighbor, there's going to be no intercom system. There'll be no Dan Gobin Line 7, Dan Gobin, there'll be none of that. 0. And something that's very important to, I think, everybody is, you know, we'll need to double our staff. Right now we have a total of 11 employees, but when I say double our staff, you know, as opposed to maybe a lot of other businesses in town, our jobs start at $15 an hour. You know, I also have a car lot on East Mason and Bellevue Street, and we've done business with employees that work there. You know, we generally keep them in a low payment because it's, in my opinion, a lot of these jobs are not living wage paying jobs, and we don't pay less than $15 an hour, period. Also, almost all of our supplies and all of our services are in Green Bay, whether it's windshields, parts. Unless it's a very rare part, we buy it locally. And, you know, one big thing is, you know, I don't know, has anyone driven by this property that I bought a couple years ago? Did you see it before we revamped it? It's a different property now completely. And we're proposing doing the same here. And even just for a little more credibility, if you go down here to East Mason and Bellevue Street, we don't let anything go. We really stay on top of everything. I think those are, we're just trying to improve our lives, improve our stores, double our staff. You know, as far as the city is concerned, we're trying to make this as easy as approval as possible and not apply for one single variance. One thing I really wanted to point out, and a lot of times I think maybe the city or all of us might see something, and everyone might have their own idea of exactly what they want to see. But I think after a certain amount of years, we have to make the best deal we can with the current property owners at the time. And that's what I'm trying to do here for us and the city. So that's all I have for now. Yes, sir.
Are you going to maintain the place on Bellevue and Mason, basically?
Well, that's been the core of our business since I've started, and that car lot right now sells between 80 and 100 cars per month consistently. So I've maintained it for now. It's relatively easier to do because I have such strong employees in there. It's a 45-second drive if you don't hit a stoplight. Not that I've timed it out.
That was going 25 the whole time.
Well, 5 over, you go 5 over, I got a scooter I use, actually.
So in other words, you probably would end up incorporating everything into this site?
I think at some point, because there's, you know, every car you buy, you have to set up, you know, I think at some point, yes, you know. You know, I think, you know, in my opinion, and that's just my opinion, I think the entire property should be one parcel. There should be an entrance here, and then an entrance here. You know, and what I've pointed out to other people too is, let's say you have your vision of exactly what you would like to see. I don't know if that's realistic to happen until one person owns the entire parcel. So if you do sell it, you have a chance of getting, okay, this is exactly what I'd like to see. There's a buyer I'd like to put it. I think if 2 people come in here with 2 different, I think it gets harder to make a deal. You know, I've heard a lot of people say, hey, I'd like to see low density retailer, some kind of retail, and I have to tell you this, in my opinion, I don't think a strong retailer is coming in without the corner. You know, if you're a really strong retailer and you have the money to buy property, I don't think say, hey, you know what, let's try and operate between here and not make a deal on the corner, and let's go in right here and let's put in a multi-million-dollar investment. I don't think that's, you know, an easy or quick thing to happen, is what I'm presenting. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned the other location that you have.
Correct.
And I wanted to follow up on Jerry's question just one step further. Our staff points out that that other location already has the appropriate Green Smart Plan designations. What is the advantage to you, or why is this location preferable for your expansion as opposed to expanding at the 1500 block?
I'm not sure if 1592 does have the appropriate, there's no green space there at all, except on the very, very corner, we actually put 2 flower pots. So I
wasn't talking about whether or not your site conformed to everything, but that area, were it to expand, as I understand, Paul, is this correct?
Correct.
Would fall within what is already designated for commercial in that area. That area is already designated for commercial.
correct.
You wouldn't need an amendment to the smart growth plan.
You mean a 1592,
Yeah,
Ms. Mason?
yeah.
That is a very small place to operate. Like, right now, it sells, you know, 80 to 100 cars a month. It's really designed to sell 50. You know, also, there's almost no shop space at all. There's 2 small bays, and believe me, if I showed you the shop and you were a technician or a detailer, it's the last place you'd want to work. The only way you're going to get someone to work is, okay, we're going to pay you more. You know, here you have a reasonable sized shop, reasonable amount of room for technicians, high ceilings, you know, big windows, and right here you have a reasonable place to park cars and drive around and park them. I mean, if you drove at 1592, if you were interested, pretending you were interested in your car, even if you're not, you came in to park and walked around, you would see exactly what I mean.
Okay.
You know, it's very tight, it's very stiff, and frankly, you really cannot hardly recondition cars here. Part of the reason I bought this is, you know, I needed to recondition cars, you know, because if you buy 100, you have to set up 100, you have to advertise 100, and with 2 bays in a tight space, it's not a reasonable request, you know, for a qualified tech and a qualified detailer.
And I take it then there also is not land available there for expansion.
Well, you know, assuming everything went perfect with the city, and I don't know if it always does, the woman next to us, she, really nice lady, her parents built their house, she was born in the house. I said, hey, you know, if you ever want to sell it, I'd be interested in buying it. She never even asked for a price, so that kind of tells you right there. There's another gentleman behind me on Charles Street, and he has a duplex. I said, God, he was buying a Honda Civic from me. I'm like, gosh, you know, I'd really like to buy your duplex if you are willing to sell it. And at the time, I thought it was worth around $80,000. And he said, well, you know, I'd have to have 110 for it. I'm like, gosh, you know, I really don't think it's worth that, but you know what? I'd buy it from you for 110. Well, then I got to go home and think about it because it's commercial property. So it's hard to buy anything that's not for sale. You know, it's like if you love your car and someone walks in the parking lot and says, hey, I'd love to buy your car. And you throw a price out there and he accepts it, you're still probably not going to be quick to say, here's my title. You know?
I'm having trouble with my transmission today, so I probably would say that. But I take your point.
We're having a big sale.
Here's my card.
this is a lot more easier to work out of. It has a big shop, it has a lot of lot space. Frankly, I could buy this property, develop it, and if I wanted, this would be hard to do, because, you know, for one, you got a car lot there selling 80 to 100 cars a month, but, you know, I started with that lot with enough money to pay for 8 cars, so it's just hard to say, you know, I'm just gonna, you know, it's like throwing away the pair of shoes you learned to walk in. It's not, I'll do it, you just don't do it over these, you know, it's not like an old bag or something, you know, so. You're welcome.
What's your time frame?
I can have this done next summer. You know, it's a situation here, this is a situation here where we really needed it, just for reconditioning purposes, but the location is so perfect for retail. We set up the building, applied for licensing, and set up the office, and here we have this property here that's essentially has been doing nothing for a very long time, and I would like to develop it. You know, on a personal level, I talked to my mom about it, and I say, you know, Mom, you know, I don't need to do this. I don't necessarily always want the extra work. You know, and my mom says, gosh, the location's so good, Dan, you know, and if you don't do it, who does do it? And I thought out one step further, because if you look at bigger cities, you see a CarMax come in, or you see a Wild Group, you know, and I also think, you know, sometimes, well, what about the little guy? Can the little guy come in and have the bigger store? Why does it have to be a big corporate monster coming in? So you know, that's my thinking on it. And then I have the opportunity to downsize if I wanted to keep this one, you know, and sell that other lot that's at East Mason and Bellevue Street. But honestly, I think this is a little stronger corner, taking nothing away from the other, traffic-wise. Mason is the same, but I think Barrett has a little more traffic from Bellevue. I've never counted it, but that's just my opinion. Okay. Thank you.
And I don't know if this is something we should ask during the public, or if I have questions for staff as far as the design, should I ask that during, when we're actually discussing it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Should I sit down?
Christie, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Christy Govan, and I sit on the Business Improvement District 48 Good Board for Milwaukee. And I just wanted to say that you have a business owner that is going to invest in transforming a condemned property into jobs and income tax, payroll tax, sales tax, property tax, revenue for your state, for our state and the city. And he is a great find, and you're very blessed to have him here with his heart and his soul. And I would welcome him. Thank you.
Margaret Baker?
Very good.
What's your name?
Oh, yours is easy, Tim Gilbert. I am one of the residents of this area. I live directly across the middle of this property at 1350 East Mason Street. I have lived in this house for 40 years.
Could you point out on the...
Oh, I sure
where it
can.
is?
My house is right here.
Okay.
So I'm right across from it. The biggest thing that I was concerned when I walked in, because I was here 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when Christ Oil wanted to come in. And they were gonna put driveways out and everything else. And when I seen this map and seen that there's no driveways coming at my house, because, like I said, I've lived there for 40 years. I've had people, the residents come out, we both want to come out at the same time, and it's really scary. I've seen a little boy get hit on this street, and I raised 5 kids and have 10 grandchildren. I've always taught my kids to go in the back, because you can see the lots are huge. I am totally for this. I think it is awesome. I think it'll clean it up. I've seen those houses deteriorate. We got squirrels living in one, and it ate all the electrical in it, because I talked to the owner and I said, what can we do about these squirrels? Because they're visiting. I don't like squirrels. But he's got green space there, he's got trees. We even took a walk down the block, and from right now, you know, he's gonna be 15 feet deep. and the way his lot is set, you're not going to see it coming. And putting trees up the other way, you're not going to see. It's not going to be just blight. I don't know what else to tell you other than I am tired of trying to keep my property clean when the property is across the street. And my husband, and we've had a lot of sickness in our family, unfortunately. So it's me that has to do the outside stuff. I've got to paint the house. And I want, you know, when you look across the street and you see 4 houses that are falling down, you think, why am I beating myself up? So please, please. And I always thought that I was already, I've got my title to my house and it says that it's residential first, commercial second. So I was surprised that, you know, there was this new medium and density retail office housing, and I thought, but I have an old, my house is on that map, it's that old, so. And I love my house too, so I want to keep it. And please, I say it again, thank you.
Thank you. Dennis Vandenhoven?
I'm Dennis Vandenhoven. I own a property across the street at 1360 East Mason, which is right behind the repair shop, right off the corner. Previously, I owned the repair shop across the street, and I sold it to Dan Gobin. You can see what he did there over the last 2 years. Really has improved the property. It looks very nice. So you can kind of figure he's going to do the same thing with the rest of the property. I'm 100% for it. 2 reasons, because it's about time we do something with that property. We keep on not approving anything, and the houses keep deteriorating, and it doesn't seem like they're going to go away in the future. So here's an opportune time to get rid of a real bad area and turn it into some nice retail, parking lot, and some tax revenue from it. So that's all I got. All right.
Thank you. Bobby Lyson?
Hi, I'm from Astor East River Neighborhood Association. I also live on Law Street, and Astor East River Neighborhood Association opposes this change. After going to the meeting, I had posted the plans on the web, on our Facebook page. We had over 1,400 posts, people who saw the post. Not one of those was in favor, and no car lot was the prominent comment for those posts. Some of the general comments were Green Bay in general should strive to do better than that. Most all of the posts were in favor of mixed commercial residential. It makes sense. The neighborhood has a lot of buying power, and that could support small businesses outside of WAM, Webster Avenue Market. I'm not sure what LSB is. Astor East River has few appealing local businesses and retail options.
Lock, Stock, and Bagel.
There we go.
Right?
That's probably it.
That's my guess.
That would be it. Astor Park area is not a place to put a car lot. Please have a little more vision than that. This is not the area or the time. Again, more commercial residential. Love to see added green space or a green approach to whatever's done. Our whole neighborhood from the 1,000 block to the 1,400 block has become one big parking lot. Enough already. I'm disgusted. We are in favor of commercial residential. We live close to this intersection. No car lots. Upgrade the neighborhood with other things. No more parking lots. Something nice should be done. More options within walking distance. Not a fan of concrete. I believe with just those 2 entranceways, you're still going to have a lot of congestion in that area. I don't see how you're going to avoid that. I feel that we've started to make some positive move in looking at the proposed residential units at the church, St. Mary of the Angels Church, that is a very positive way to go, and that should be expanded down this area. I also feel strongly, I took part in the charrette, as did 4 other neighborhood associations several years ago, where the neighbors all came together to decide what they wanted from the Fox River to the East River. And again, that was all mixed residential commercial. There was no more cement, no parking lots, nothing like that. While I feel that Mr. Gobin has really done a nice job upgrading that building, it's a beautiful building. I applaud him for paying more, actual living wage. I don't know how you make a parking lot beautiful and pretty and all of that sort of thing. It's still a parking lot. It doesn't really fit with what the people in our neighborhood association would like to see. Thank you.
Isn't that in a different association though? That's in Joanne's association, not Astor East River.
It's across the street, they share a boundary. An association shares a boundary.
Mike Dockery?
I'm the real estate broker that's working on that property, and for 11 years, there have been those properties that were for sale from this time, this period, that period, the other period. 11 years, okay? Now, the 5 buildings that we're talking about, I don't believe that, well, there would be 5 driveways that you're looking at coming out. One is a double driveway, okay? You know the traffic count on Mason Street. I mean, it's fantastic, it's phenomenal. And Baird also is a tremendous car counting on it. Now, if you cut this down, if you have mixed commercial, apartments, all this and that, how many cars are you going to have coming out on Mason Street? Okay? This plan is an excellent plan with 2 driveways. You cut it down. 5 of them are disappearing. Okay? And as far as parking lots, not looking, like the Taj Mahal, this design and with vegetation, it's going to be 1,000, in my opinion, 1,000% better, okay? Because it's going to look good, and he takes care of his thing. Dan is a very meticulous man from what I know of him, and he doesn't have, broken things laying around. Oh, gee, I got to get that window fixed. I got to get this door straightened out or whatever. He does an excellent job. And you probably have noticed the American flags. That's one thing that I really like, because there's too much going on in our country where the flag is being stepped on, or they won't stand up for the national anthem on different places. He's got pride, okay? Pride in our country. He has employees that are from here. Like was mentioned, you don't have a big conglomerate coming in and then they'll bring in, 50 people and they're from Lord knows where. But I think that this plan is an excellent plan. We've seen it, like I said, for 11 years. I'm a very good friend of the owner. And for 11 years, different things have been proposed. They haven't made it, that's fine. Okay, if it was, voted down, that's fine. But this one, I think, is absolutely perfect for that spot, okay? Because you're not going to have, 50 people going in and out of homes or anything else. It's very well controlled. And let's see, I think that's about it. Any questions? Yes?
One, please. The blue houses, are they now all vacant or what?
They are vacant, yes, purposely. Okay, he's kept them. He doesn't want them. It's being sold as a package. Okay.
He being the current owner.
The owner.
Yes.
Owner owns all that. Yes.
Okay.
So, and if this didn't go, okay, well, think about it.
those driveways would remain there, okay? There would be one house fixed up here, one house fixed up there, people would be moving in because it's residential. The 20-year plan calls for commercial, okay? This is what the proposal is, it's a commercial business. So, and it's been long enough. Everybody agrees to that. And the owner does not want to have to say, okay, the heck with them then, we'll just sell them individually, because there have been some interest in some individual things. And then they look at what has to be done, and then, well, then, this one doesn't get done, well, how long is that going to sit before it's sold? So this is just a perfect package. And again, Dan is an upstanding man. If you look at his business, it's clean, it's very, very nice, and the number of vehicles sold off of there is fantastic. I mean, if he wasn't a good dealer, he wouldn't be around long, okay? So, any other questions? Thank you very much for your time.
Mark Grassi, did you wish to speak at this time? Okay, thank you. Does anybody else want to speak? Yes.
Thank you. Bill Galvin, the alderman. I met with Mr. Goldman, and we walked through the property and his business plan pretty much as he presented it to you. I've heard nothing but good things about Mr. Goldman and the business that he currently runs. If you go by his facility on Bellevue and Mason, it's very well maintained. He keeps it up. I have, though, received several calls from neighbors. Nobody that's for it. Everybody that I've talked to has been against it. And so my concerns are that we have some rundown property. It looks poorly. It's been poorly maintained. One reason I heard it's been poorly maintained is because the owner, anticipating a sale, said, I put any money into keeping it up and following local ordinances if I'm just going to sell it. And I really think the city could be doing a better job in enforcing ordinances on those properties. They do look dilapidated. If they were torn down and it was turned into green space, would that make the owners across the street happy? I don't know. But it certainly wouldn't be something she would have to be looking at every day that looks poorly. You know, we can certainly do like we've done on Walnut Street and just create some nice green space until we can get some development in there. On the same hand, you're right, we have been waiting a long time for something to happen there, and nothing has been happening. So we have to take that into consideration. As far as taxes go, taxes are being paid on the property right now. If Mr. Goldman buys it and develops it, will the taxes go up? Will there be any more taxes? Will it remain the same, or will it go down? Because it's not worth as much as residential property. I don't know the answers to that. There's another building on there. It's an old carriage factory. I don't know if that's a historical site. I know some people have been talking about looking into that and seeing if it is something that should be protected or not. That could create another spoke in the wheel, so to speak, as we move forward. I'm very interested in the Friary Townhouse development over on Cass Street, one block over, and I'm wondering if this goes through, would that not spur some other development of the same sort on the street right there? But again, I also bring up, we can't wait 20 years to find that out. So there's a balance here. What else do I have down here? You know, there's not going to be a sound system, there's not going to be lighting, everything else like that. And I think he's a man of his word, but there comes a tipping point where complaints from neighbors versus what's best for his business. You know, how do you hold him to those that he's not going to have excessive lighting? When I was campaigning, the Shell development on the corner of Bellevue and Mason, that's all I had was complaints from the neighbors immediately around there about all the lights shining in their houses. And it disturbs them. And obviously you want that lit. You know what happened at the Ford dealership with all the vehicles being vandalized and items stolen. So certainly he has to keep that lit up so he can protect his property. And I would remind you of the dental building that was developed on Main Street in the 300 block several years ago. At that time, the city was unable to get any development. So they sold it. They have a one-story development there, and I know they wish to God they hadn't done that because of all the other development that's taken place and what could have been developed there. You know, it's one in the hand, two in the push. And again, that's something that you folks have to weigh as you think about that. Could something better go there that would be better for our community and for what it's currently zoned for? So, based on those factors, I'm going to say that I'm not in favor of this development, but at the same time, I'm not willing to wait 20 years either. You know, the residents spoke pretty clearly about the Christ development, and that's certainly somewhat different than what we're going to have here. But again, you know, just some food for thought for you folks going forward. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak on this matter? Does anybody else wish to speak?
I have one more thing I'd like to say. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I wait till the...
Absolutely.
Okay. Does anybody else wish to speak? Okay. Let the record show that no one else came forward. This public hearing is now closed. We will address this item again a little bit further down on the agenda. Next item on the agenda right now is communications. Request of Alderman Tom Duane to discuss the possible action of the sidewalk ordinance. Recommendation, receive and place on file.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and place on file. Is there any further discussion?
I would just add that I did talk to Alderman Duane, and he said that he was not able to be here tonight, and that he wanted to talk with a couple of other aldermen about what he had in mind, and then he would bring something back to the commission. So I don't think you're going to see the end of it tonight, but receive it and place it on file and also.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion to receive and place on file. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Old business, none. New business. Item
Mr.
3.
Chair, if I may put a footnote on that, I would suggest that Tom Duane contacts the planning commission people and discuss it with them instead of coming here and hashing this thing over and over again and sending it back and so on. That's good.
Okay.
They're always available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
New business. Item 3, consideration with possible action on a request to amend the City of Green Bay Smart Growth 2022 Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map for properties located from 1335 through 1369 East Mason Street and 526 South Baird Street for medium-intensity retail office housing to commercial, submitted by Dan Rorty, Division 4, on behalf of Dan Golden, Golden Cars.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just provide a few highlights from the staff report. Let me just go over some of the basics again. East Mason Street, Baird, and Irwin. This is the current comprehensive plan. You can see the medium-intensity retail office and housing kind of running right through East Mason Street. Low-density residential to the north, and mixed-use development to the south. The current zoning map is a variety of zoning districts. The current property is zone low-density residential R1. The current Goben lot is a highway commercial. There's neighborhood center. The parking lot for Bellin is a general commercial, and they've got some R3 zoning to the south. There's quite a variety of zoning going on there. As was mentioned before, this request would require rezoning to allow this dealership to go in. As you may recall, back in 2013, there was a request, as mentioned before, from Christ Oil it's a very similar request to change the land use from medium-intensity retail office and housing to commercial. That request failed both the Planning Commission and Common Council. I think the staff had concerns about the intensity of the use, traffic concerns, and compatibility with the residential properties to the north as well. Again, this request is very similar to that.
You're comparing it to a gas station, this request here?
Almost there. So this land use is not as intense as a gas station, but it still is a commercial use. And it does not necessarily provide that transition that we're looking for. And we feel, again, that the medium-intensity retail office or housing land use provides that transition for this particular neighborhood and the immediate area, and continues on with future land use changes that may occur along East Mason Street. So any change from the current land use to commercial really kind of is a short-term change, maybe not the highest and best use long-term. long-term, we feel, again, the medium-intensity retail office housing lends that to a better transition. I just wanted to also highlight, too, there's a series of review criteria that we use as part of the comp plan amendment. Those are listed within your agenda. As mentioned before about some historic properties potentially here. They're not historic in the sense that they've been designated historic. They're not part of the historical district, but they have been identified as part of the architecture and history inventory by the State of Wisconsin Historical Society. One that stands out is at behind 1337 East Mason Street. That property is really not visible from East Mason Street, but it is to the rear of that property, and as the elder mentioned, was a kind of former industrial type use along with it. So we did notify affected property owners within 200 feet. This subject area is under 2 acres in size. We did notify the neighborhood associations. The aldermen have gone through that process. Mr. Goldman, the applicant, did conduct a neighborhood meeting as well, invited residents into his place of business to discuss the proposal. But we are recommending denial of the request based on the fact that we don't believe this is the highest and best use for that particular property in question.
Could I just like add something as well with regards to the blue houses that are on the site? The owner of that property is actually in an abeyance agreement with the city of Green Bay right now. And it was due, it came up in April of this year, but we knew he was working on a development project, so we kind of let him go a little bit further. But if this project were to not go through, then the owner is going to be responsible for, we're going to have to go back in there and do all new orders. There's currently a raise on one of them. All the other houses have orders on them. So regardless of what happens, those houses are not going to stay the way that they are. Because we've realized that that's been a problem from back in 2015, we've got these orders on it. So just, I think some folks in the neighborhood thought that, well, they're just going to stay like that forever. That's not the case. We're going to do something about those houses. And Dan will or we will, but something's going to happen with those houses.
Yes.
Could I follow up that comment? Is there an alternative, a possibility of them being torn down, like the houses on Walnut, if the current owner did not comply with the various owners? Would the city be able to turn them down and make that green space? Or
we'd have to get the inspectors through. One of them did have raise orders on it. We don't know the current status of them, so there may be the ability, based on the condition of the homes, to have raise orders. Minimally, though, they'll have to be brought up to code if there's not enough structurally wrong with them to raise them. So I guess and that was something that when we worked with the owner, we didn't want that either. That's not the best use there really either, keeping those houses there, which is why we wanted to work with him on a development. So we suggested he tear them all down a year ago to help sell the property, but that costs money.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Westbitty.
How long have they been classified blue houses?
Well, I've lived in the neighborhood a long time, and as far as I can remember, we called them the blue houses.
Pardon me?
They're painted blue.
They're like blue painted, so.
They're all the same shade of blue.
Yeah,
Oh,
blue and white.
okay.
It's not a classification.
Yeah, it's not
It's a
a
description.
That was a new term to me. I thought,
No.
where'd that come from?
It's just those blue houses.
District blue houses.
Right.
But they have been problem homes since 2015, you said?
Well, we've have inspection orders back to 2015, probably before then, maybe, I would say, if I'm looking at the owners, with regards to probably tenants or maintenance.
They've been vacant for quite a while, haven't they?
That was part of our agreement, was that they remain vacant.
Oh.
But you are on record if this does not fly, that they definitely are going to have to do something, and we're not going to be sitting on it any longer?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I have something in my craw that with the ordinance ruling, that the only way ordinances, and correct me if I'm wrong, are enforced in the city of Green Bay are by complaint, and I have a real problem with that. I wish somehow we could change that.
Well, we do a look around. Our inspectors on site will do like adjacent properties, but you're right, we aren't going out proactively at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I had a couple of questions. That notch that's cut out on the upper left, what is that? That's part of Bellin? Okay. And is there a lot just west of the red area there that's not used for parking, or what is that? It looks like it's just a wooded parcel or a grass parcel.
I believe that's true. I think that's also owned by Bell, and I think it's vacant.
Okay, that's a buffer area.
It's a fence and green space, and some trees.
I don't know if it's a formal buffer, because that probably predates our ordinance, but it's basically green space, yes, vacant.
So that would stay?
That's not part of this proposal, no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion among the staff?
Well, there's always the possibility that if this didn't work out, that they'd be raised, but then we'd have just a bunch of green empty space on Mason. And I think the petitioner had pointed out, without that corner lot, it would be a lot harder, I feel like, to get something that is the MIROH, I don't know what the abbreviation is, how to say that.
Close
but,
enough.
Right, the Moreau?
You can just say mixed.
Mixed use, okay. So I mean, as much as I am all for mixed use and would love to see that, I mean, the comprehensive plan came out in 2003. Nothing's really changed. I feel like those properties have been vacant 5+ years, maybe?
Off and on.
Off and
Off and
on.
on, okay. Yeah, and the Friary across the street in the Astor East River neighborhood is fabulous, but it's also not mixed use, if I remember correctly, it's just all residential.
Correct.
Now I realize this might be going ahead because we're just looking at the comprehensive plan, we're not looking at changing the zoning right now and looking at an actual site plan, but as far as what they've shown, does the green space appear to be something that would be within our ratios?
Possibly. You need 20% green space, but we haven't studied it for compliance.
Right.
We drew our site plan off of what the city specs would be. That's exactly how we drew it.
And then as far as lighting, I mean, is there some lighting that exists that would not create the light pollution, especially at night? Because like Alder Galvin pointed out, what do they have, like 40 sets of tires? 40 sets of wheels stolen at Dorsch. I feel like that place is pretty well lit up, but, so they have to have lighting, but I don't want to impact the neighborhood. I guess the thing that I see as a benefit is, there's a woman who lives directly across the street, and she's and has no financial ties whatsoever to it, and she's like, this looks good, and there's no access, I like it. So when this plan, in 2015, it was a Christ gas station that was going to go in?
Right,
And
convenience
so
store.
then that just went to
gas-
Roosevelt and East Mason?
I think so. They were trying to break into the market, and that was the only opportunity they had.
That's my gas station. That's the one I always go to, so, okay. All right, well I guess that answers my question. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, would I love mixed use? Yes. I don't know that leaving it vacant green space without that corner lot is going to do a lot, right next to Bellin's parking lot, so. Okay, that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion among the staff?
Yeah,
Yes, Commissioner Paprocki.
I think the thing that I keep coming back to is, at some point, the perfect becomes the enemy of the good here. And, that this whole corridor, I think, has been improved by Mr. Gobin's businesses. I live near there, and I have for, since probably 2011. And I think that he's done a great job developing his business over the current lot and then the new purchase. I think the difference between the where he has his truck business now and what was there before is just remarkable, honestly. So how long, if we've got this up for sale for 11 years and we've got dilapidated properties that I heard the word condemned used. I don't know if they've been formally condemned. Is that accurate?
One has been, a raised order's been put on.
Right. We have the corner anchor already purchased and operating. What is our real expectation that something is going to happen here other than a best case scenario of some grass? I think that that's something that we should frankly consider. Then we look at, we're not we're not plugging in a business here that is a new business owner, and, you know, God love new business owners, of course, but we have someone with 6 years of experience in this market, near this location, who has kind of a proven track record now that he's committed to this area, who is hiring locally, is purchasing local parts, is not restricted by sort of, you know, the bureaucracy of being part of a corporate national chain, who I think will be better able to comply with the city's expectations. And I think we would all love to see mixed residential, commercial use here, but I think that, you know, I won't complete the analogy, but my grandfather used to say you can wish in one hand and in the other and see which one fills up first. At some point, I think that we have to try and decide what's best for this neighborhood, and I think that, I mean, it ticks a lot of boxes here with a local business owner who's committed to the area, who's got a small business, who's got a proven record of success, who already has a foothold on this block, who's addressed the concerns of reducing, you know, the traffic exits out onto Mason Street. It ticks an awful lot of boxes, in my opinion. At some point, would we just be in 3 more years or 4 more years considering another similar project because it's the only thing that's going to fit here? Or having dilapidated houses or some grass? I think it's something to think about.
Thank you. Commissioner Goodman.
Another question for staff. Paul, on your representation to us, your report to us, you mentioned that the proposed use does not create an anchor to the block face, that has only one small structure on the northwest corner. Can you translate that for me? I do not understand what the point was there.
Sure, yeah. So we're talking about the north side of East Mason between Irwin and Barron. At one point, Roosevelt School was here. That kind of created some scale and mass there. There was a building, and the building's gone, it became a parking lot.
Okay.
There are homes here now. Once those structures are gone, there's, again, a blank facade. There's no structures that are there. The only one remaining structure will be Dan Gobin's car and truck building. That's it. There's no ability in the future to change the commercial to get that block face back.
Which, well, that would still be there though, right?
This,
Very possibly.
This would still be here, sure.
Yeah. I mean, without anything in between, you still don't have an anchor, do you? If something else came in and bought up that package.
Right, that would be the hope, right? That there would be someone who comes in, does a mixed-use development, reestablishes at least a portion of that block with some scale and some mass to the building.
Okay, what I'm trying to do now, and I'm wrestling exactly with the issue that Randy just raised. So the blue houses are up as a package. If somebody came in and bought the blue houses for mixed use, it would almost surely involve an entrance and an exit. So you've increased 2 curb cuts now that wouldn't be there with this proposed use. And I'm not sure how that becomes an anchor for the block. Just because there would be some building there, even though it's not on either end of the block?
I think it helps.
Is that what you have in mind?
It plugs a hole that's, you know, we're going the opposite way. We're moving structure, not adding structures to the block. At least by adding something in that half block would provide some facade to that portion of the block.
So then, here's my follow-up question to that. One of the advantages of this proposal is that it also does not add a structure that would be in the way of something else that might come down the pike that would be a higher and better use to the point that somebody would be interested in making a deal with Mr. Gobin.
Right. But that's going to be a commercial use. Could be a car lot. Someone else could buy the car lot. It could be a fast food restaurant. Could be a Crest Oil, could be any number of other auto-related type of uses. So we're back to square one about intensity of use, traffic, and higher density land use.
So if we wanted then something that might be encouraged by the new friary, for instance, And following up the suggestion of the head of the Astor crew, it would have to be somebody who is willing to go through the process of changing the zoning again into something that would support, for instance, some combination of residents with boutique shops. And we'd have to put up with adding in the 2 curb cuts to go in and out of that.
Right. Is it 2 curb cuts? It's possible. I don't know. It depends
Yeah,
on what the
I'm
development is. Tough to
I'm just
speculate.
guessing, but thinking
Right.
about some kind of mini mall with residential
Right.
association with it. You'd have to at least have an entrance and an exit.
Right, it might be one way in, one way out, but again, it's tough to say,
Yeah.
depending on the intensity of the use, what
Yeah.
would be appropriate.
Yeah. And this certainly is a less intense use than Christ,
It is, yes.
significantly, and I think that really does need to be underlined.
Right, and I just want to point out again, once land use is changed, then whoever else comes in can create a more intense commercial land use in the future.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Commissioner Wisbitz.
Thank you. I think I'm not willing to wait for 20 more years. The alderman sounded like he was not really in favor of that either. And I was listening when he said that. The neighborhood association, I value their input. I myself have spawned over a dozen neighborhood associations, and we listen to those people. They really usually give good input. As far as the pluses for this, basically this venture, double employees, less driveways, which is very important. We sat here when the other outfit wanted to go in there and looked at their signs, looked at the way the cars, the traffic. That's a horrible, horrible intersection. The kids from school, my own grandson goes through there. And that's very important for East and the high school and everything down that way. That's a really valid point, less driveways. The cleanup, what they've done with the property already sets an example of what they can do and what they promised. I've seen their promises fulfilled, and I think it's great that they did that. The fact that it's got to do something, I'm not too impressed with the something, and going to retail shops and everything. If you go west of it, what do you see? I see parking lots. I see some guys storing out, he's probably in there with his storage sheds, he's building storage sheds, piling them in there. I see a Channel 5, is it, whatever, it's been there for years, looks like it's falling apart. They'll probably be moved out, something bigger, greener pasture someday. We've got a motel down there that's struggling for existence. I am not impressed with the development west of there, so I would not hang my hat on what they've been doing down there. The blue houses, I think they should be gone already, and I think they would be gone if, and I did voice my opinion on it, if in fact the ordinances were actually policed more by actually enforcing, not just by complaint. And as an alderman before, I think that just burned me up. I told people that, they said, well, gee whiz, this guy's got this, he's got that. Well, I'm going to tell you something, folks. It's only enforced by complaint. Well, come on. That's not, I would like to have somebody look at that and hopefully maybe this will go back to our city council. The 20 years of waiting on, we just can't do it. I said that before. Intersections, driveways, big hazards. I think it's got everything going for it. I really do. I think I'm really impressed with the business. I'm impressed with the people who have spoken for this. And at this point in time, I would like to hear from anybody else. Otherwise, I'm ready to make a motion.
We do have interested parties.
Pardon me?
We need to open the floor.
Okay.
Excuse me, before we do. Commissioner Hanson?
So, Paul, what falls within that mixed use designation on the comprehensive plan?
It's a wide variety of uses. It's the blending of residential and commercial uses together.
Okay.
It could be all multifamily. It could be a mixture of both. You just can't do that one single higher intensity commercial use.
So it couldn't be like a mini mall or something. It would have to be something that had residential and...
It wouldn't have to necessarily, but it could be a mixed use. Or it could be a multi-tenant building that had a variety of uses that are allowed under like, say, the office residential or neighborhood center. More neighborhood-friendly type of uses per se.
So it could be just an apartment building?
It could be, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd move to suspend the rules to hear from interested parties.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Dan Goldman?
Yes,
Do you wish
sir.
to speak again?
I would. Should I be standing or sitting?
Yes. If you would.
All right. I just wrote a few things down that people, might be concerned about. Lighting. If you go to either one of my car dealerships now, I don't have any complaints that I know of. And if you look at directly, I buy very low intensity lights. For one, I don't want to light it up like a Christmas tree, and I don't think it's good for the customer either. And really, to speak freely, when you're selling a 3-year-old vehicle, especially a pickup truck, you're not trying to point out every little scratch on the truck. It's not like a brand new truck; it's used. It's half the price of a new one. It's got a scratch. Let's get that light over here. Come on, they need to see this. There's none of that going on. Secondly, if you talk to my neighbors, either in my car, they all know I'm a reasonable person. All right, traffic concern. Okay. Well, first, this goes together. Business talk and traffic concern. The property is $550,000, okay? The apartment that we're talking about, I don't know what it costs to build, but I don't know how you build anything for less than $3 to $5 million, okay? Now, we're not too far away from the cigarette and booze depot, not too far away from, now we can go to the Glass Monkey and go to pick out our favorite hookah, that's walking distance, and get a tattoo on the way. There's nothing Highline over there that I can see. Even the beautiful jewelry store that's beautiful, if you look at the side of the building, their big pitch is Pandora, which is $100 and less jewelry. This is not a high-income area is what I'm explaining. In business-wise, if you're gonna buy that kind of property for that kind of dollars, it's either high volume, low markup, or low volume, high markup. There's no other way. Now, it sounds like my stuff's a lot of markup, high markup, but it's really not. You buy something for $22,000, you sell it for $25,000, you made $3,000. But if you do the numbers, that's not the return that you would get from a lot of other dealers. And then the last thing is historic property. I have to tell you, you can find out any old worn out building, and we can talk about it being historic in the future. But believe me, the historic part of you might end if you go look at it yourself and drive back there and walk all the way around it, which I have. Your historic feelings on it might feel that, gosh, this would look much better if it wasn't here. And then the last thing I heard about a block phase, a building, I haven't said this, but there's no guarantee that I won't want to come back here and say, I want to put a new store on it. I want to put a brand new building. If anyone knows anything about me, I'm not the type of business owner, hey, let's make as much as we can and let's just keep it and do nothing with it. I'm actually the complete opposite, especially the way our tax system is set up, where you pay half of your income goes towards taxes, so why would you not reinvest, So lighting, okay, I can tell you right now is not going to be a problem. Traffic, if I get 6 customers a day, I'm doing really good. I want you to know we're going to sell 3 of them. That's all the customers we ever need, okay? Business talk, again, these apartments you're talking about, I don't know if you can do it for $5 million. We can look at the local business, see if, whether those are going to rent for and what their walking distances are going to be, where they want to go in the area. Channel 5, they fence off their employee parking, okay? There's a reason for that, and there's barbed wire on top of that in case anybody wants to jump across. That was earned. No one just puts that up because they want to. That was earned. And again, I'm not sure that I wouldn't want to build a brand new store and put a big block right there, assuming it got approved, assuming everybody wanted to do it. And that's all I have. Any questions for me?
Type of lighting you're going to use, I know that there's lighting available, and I assume that's what you're going to use, down lighting that you don't even see from a distance away.
Well, I'm very open when it comes to lighting. If you go to my truck lot, it's the same lighting that I would propose, unless it was too bright.
Okay.
For anyone that's thinking reasonably. Like, you can stare right up at it like this and it's not going to bother you. And I have 4 light poles, and frankly, I think I could have got 6 or 7 approved. I really do. But I don't want 6 or 7. I don't want to be a nuisance to my neighbors, and I'm not trying to point out every scratch on every used truck.
And I guess what I'm saying is there is lighting available. I know that because on Nicolay Drive, the lighting, street lights, by the way, there's half of them out. Somebody said something about that.
I love these lights I buy from Jump Sign.
You can't even see them from base. That's
Yeah.
so the technical point of those lights is available, so that can be taken care of very easily.
Right, and if you look at the amount of light poles I have, in the site plan, you're gonna say, Dan, why don't you have more there? I mean, really, if you were starting the dealership and making the investment yourself, you would say, gosh, don't you think you should have a few more light poles? And I'm trying to make this as easy for everybody. I don't know how to make it easier, honestly. Is there any other questions?
And I actually only brought up the apartments because apartments would be something that would be approved, and I know how so many people in the city feel about apartment complexes going up, so.
Well, I think they're great too. I really do, but someone has to go there with their checkbook and be like, yeah, people are gonna wanna live here.
Right.
Let's write a check for 5 to 7 million after we buy the property, go through the entire process. What are these apartments gonna rent for? If you get a pen and paper and do the math yourself and consider these fantasy apartments, what they're gonna rent for, and what the retail, assuming you don't want the corner as a businessman too, because I'm not selling. But what it's all gonna rent for, you might find that the numbers are the worst you've ever seen, and you just go home. You might find that. I would. Any other questions?
I just want to say, another valid point is, you go on either side of that street, all the way up. Birdseed, there's another Bellin parking lot, there's a gas station on the other side, picking on the other side of the street. You're right, there's nothing there. And if I'm gonna live in an apartment, I'm gonna wait till they fill up downtown before I even think about moving there. Come on.
The majority of my employees, I just want to touch on one thing, are from the neighborhood. And almost every single employee I've hired has been in close to, not poverty, but a close to near poverty situation. And I start them out at $15 an hour. And frankly, when I have good months, I bonus them on top of that. That's where you go by my stores, you see the same people. If you see a new one, they're either going to be there for a long time or 2 months. I pay top dollar and I just want a good worker, but it's really, if the deal doesn't go through for whatever reason, and this isn't any kind of trying to even convince you, it's 11 more people that don't have a living wage paying job. And I see in Green Bay, I sell cars in this town, I advertise cruises for $99.95, and the reason I do that is that the wages are low. I would rather sell 14.9, 17.9 cars, but the majority of the household income, just the Chevy Cruze for $99.95 is what's in the budget, So I just want to mention that when you think of the business side, what you would like to see. Okay, and then just take a minute, let's pretend it was my personal checkbook, would you write the check? And let's do the numbers, what they would rent for, this fantasy buyers, assuming, you're just gonna find that the math doesn't add up. Even if the vision is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, the math has to be there. And at this plan, the math is there. In your vision, part of it is there. Not 100% of exactly what you wanna see, but a big part of it, the green space, the employees, the upkeep on the facilities. Probably 75% is there.
Did you meet with people from the neighbor association, have that neighborhood meeting, and how did that go?
We had the neighborhood meeting, You don't know what everyone is thinking, most people seemed really well. I have to tell you, a happy person, or usually someone that's okay with it, like that buys a car from me, they buy it and they drive it and they enjoy it. They don't run around telling everyone how much they love their car. Now, if someone buys something they don't like, they want to run and tell everyone. If there's really that many dissatisfied people about this project, I think there'd be one more person, at least one more, a lot more people with negative feelings about it. They'd probably make the trip from home, downtown, Just my opinion. Happy people just go on with their lives. Yeah, that's fine. I gotta go to work tomorrow. Someone really upset about it's gonna show up in the meeting. I don't see that crowd here. If they're upset, not enough to get off the couch and drive down, not that mad.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Christie Goldman, did you want to speak?
No, I did. I know a little bit about charrettes. We invested in one. We paid a fortune for one. And we were so disappointed at the outcome of it because it was waterfalls and green space and nothing that was financially or fiscally responsible. And there was no funding for it. It looked like it was going to be a dependence on our city. And I think that you have a time and a place with a gentleman with the funds that can make dollars and cents after 11 years of dormancy. I think, from your perspective, I would jump on it because you can go another 11 years real easily with an eyesore and a safety hazard as well. And I think you're right, in any potential cross-use would create a safety hazard for the residents. And when they pull out and another one's pulling out across the way at the same time, that's when the accidents are happening. And that eliminates that piece of it. And this is a corridor, what I can see is a main drag. This isn't a residential area. I mean, there's a wall, you know, it just seems like a big-time commercial crossroads. And here you've got a big-time commercial going in there. I think it's a win-win. Thank you.
Margaret Whitehurst? Do you? Sorry.
That's okay, thank you. Like you brought up what's going on down west or whatever, and I know I was involved in the thing where they sat up and said, what do we want for our neighborhood? And they had little Legos for us to set it all up, and most of them, they showed pictures of different, you know, how you wanted the business or whatever, and most of them wanted businesses close to the street. If you ever go to Myers Jewelry and try to get back on the street, you're taking your life in your hand. Even Irwin and East Mason trying to get on there, that hookah shop, or whatever it's called.
Glass Monkey.
You can't, the Glass Monkey, you can't even see to make a right-hand turn onto East Mason. And that building looks like it should be torn down. But, you know, this is going to be set back, it's beautiful, and it's blacktop, not concrete. You need to do it. We can't wait any longer. I've been there for 40 years. I bought my house 40 years ago because Roosevelt was there. I have 5 children. The day my oldest was going to go to kindergarten, they tore it down. Told us that East High was going to build a playground there. They sold it to Bellin Hospital. Now, does Dan's name need to be Bellin Hospital to get a lot in this city? Because Bellin's got parking lots all over the place. And who yelled at them? Nobody. They just kept handing them out. They gave them the school downtown. We need to do this. We need to step forward and take action and not wait. Please, don't wait. It's been 40 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis Vandenhaven? Did you wish to?
I'm good. I think enough was said.
Thank you. Bobby Lyson?
So first of all, I take exception with your comment about my neighborhood being a low-income area. That is not true.
Address that, Chair, please.
I'm sorry. That is not true.
It's my area too.
The barbed wire being earned, I take exception with that. Is that some connotation that this area is full of criminals and things like that, and that's why it was earned? You talked about going west, from here going west, and thinking that all of those things were going to be failed properties. Does that mean you're willing to look at rezoning and making more concrete parking lots and things like that, and more big businesses and things like that? This is an opportunity for the city to be progressive, which has been lacking for many, many, many years. This is your opportunity to do something like that. You talked about the housing on Walnut Street. You now have beautiful townhouses right there. That could be something certainly that would be much better suited than a asphalt or blacktop car lot. And you want this in your neighborhood?
Yes, I do.
Because I'm sure most of you probably wouldn't want some big car lot and more big commercial entities in your neighborhood. This is my neighborhood as well. It's a unique neighborhood, it's a residential neighborhood, and something like this just sort of continues to detract from that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mike Dockery, did you wish to speak again?
I just wanted to make one point about Chris Doyle. I was the one that was handling that situation. And the only thing that came up and it bounced Chris Doyle is within 300 feet of a gas station, okay, with underground gas tanks, within 300 feet, there's a city well. And they, about this much of that lot, I think it was 20 feet into the lot, was within 300 feet of that well. That's why it got canned. So Mr. Chris Doyle said, Doc, what can we do? So he went up and bought the corner up there, a block away, where there was already a filling station, okay? And they're good people, you know, I just wanted to point that out, that it wasn't anything, the main thing was that well was within 300 feet of something that was not allowed, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Grassi, did you wish to speak at this time?
Yeah, I'll say a couple. I wasn't planning on saying anything, I was just coming to back Dan, I'm an employee. I've lived in Green Bay my whole life. My family's had business in a couple blocks away from the 1959 address since 1940. So I've been in here my whole life. I've seen the neighborhood from what it was to what it is now. These eyesores, the blue houses, they're on a street that's 30 miles an hour. You know, if you're driving by, if there's a structure, most people don't know that there's even that block building behind there. You know, this isn't a 25 residential area. It's a high traffic area. It's going to look, you know, professional. And I've been an employee with Dan for two years. There's going to be guys walking around with ties and, you know, dressed nice as opposed to ugly blue buildings sitting out here. And as far as aesthetics and lighting, that's all going to be the code, and it's all going to look good. Everyone can just relax. It's going to be nice. So, I don't know. Does anyone have questions for me?
Are you happy?
Yeah. Yeah. I had the opportunity to trade in my $180,000 truck for a brand new F-150. So Dan helped me with that. So
You reek of contentment.
that's anybody else?
Thank you.
I want to ask a question of order. I know Bill Mindel, who was here, has done a lot of work with historic structures, and is it appropriate to ask him if he knows anything at all about the brick structure that's on this property?
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Bill, do you know anything at all about the brick structure on the property that used to be the factory?
Bill Mindel, 125 West Mission Road. I've walked the site and I've walked around that property. I was assuming it was an old carriage house, but I think Paul described it as perhaps a former industrial building. It strikes me that it is historic. I don't know to what degree. I don't know that the Historic Preservation Commission has had any input on this, that it has been brought before them.
We do know that it was built in 1923 and that it was an auto body and also metal
Okay.
products company.
Okay, so
So
then,
that we know, and I was just, what's the best argument you could make for paying attention to that building?
just from, and I walked the site a couple of years ago, I think when Chris Doyle was making its proposal. And the thing that would strike me the most would just be the architecture of the building. I know it's not in good shape today, but it does represent a style of historic industrial architecture. And I'm trying to recall on memory here, it had some nice window placement, some exterior materials, the layout of the building, there it is. And again, it's in disrepair, but these buildings in other instances have been fixed up on occasion. Whether that's sufficient to prevent a development like this, that's your call. But there is historic value to that building, and I've seen buildings like that renovated and restored in the past for other uses. As someone mentioned, it's not visible from Mason Street, it's in the back, at quite some distance toward the back of the lot.
I was surprised at how far back it goes, in fact. It looks like a fairly small building from the face toward Mason Street.
Yes,
So it's quite a
yes.
large building. Thank you.
Well, thank you for asking.
Thank you. Okay, we will return to regular order of business.
Could I hop in? Alderman, just a second. Seems that a lot of people want to suggest going with Mr. Goldman to solve problems that really don't exist. I'm hearing about traffic issues. 36 years with the police department, traffic's not an issue on that street. It's 30 miles an hour. We all know nobody goes hardly 30 miles an hour. But if there were excessive traffic accidents or crashes or anything else like that there, other things would have been done already by the Department of Public Works to address that. If our solution to 30 mile an hour traffic in a residential area is to make parking lots, then we're gonna have to go all the way up to Abrams Street and beyond. And then we're gonna get on the west side, and we're gonna have to get on numerous other streets where it's 30 miles an hour, and it's all residential. So I think we need to, if we're gonna go with Mr. Goldman, we have to go with Mr. Goldman because it's the best thing for the city. And is it the best thing for the city? The property is valued at what right now? Anybody have a value on the property, Mr. Real Estate Guy?
Yeah,
What is it, sir?
well, it's on the market for $550.
550.
That's correct.
And what's the current,
$500,000.
and what's the current tax base on it?
I have that folder at the office.
Okay, so would Mr. Goldman's property increase the tax base or lower it?
That would be up to the city, of course.
Okay, so, I mean, is it going to increase the taxes or not? Is it going to lower the taxes? Is it residential? Again, let's not solve problems with Mr. Goldman's plan that don't exist. Let's talk about, is Mr. Goldman's plan the best thing that's for the city at this time? And I understand people are concerned because it's been sitting vacant for a long time. It looks horrible. But I would remind you to go take a look at the corner of Baird and East Walnut Street. And you look at the homes there and the values of those homes, people paying property taxes, and people having a good living in a real nice place, and it looks nice. It looks real nice, and it's set back off the road. The depth of these lots would allow something like that. If someone wanted to put commercial, retail, residential, or just residential in there. So, you know, these are, again, I want to remind you about, like I said, the 300 block of, once that parking lot is in there, no one's ever going to build anything there other than a parking lot. And I don't believe Mr. Goldman would sell that unless he got a heck of a good offer on it.
I would build a new car lot on it. I put a brand new facility on there in 10 years if I wanted. I mean, if I.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, I don't think, I'm just saying that's not accurate. I wouldn't be against putting a new facility on there, not at all.
But that facility would be car lot related.
Yes, but it could be anything in the future also.
Sure. So, I mean, so I think we have to be cautious. Again, like I said, and Jerry pointed out, I'm not willing to wait 20 years. I think that's ridiculous. But at the same time, the economy has turned around. We're seeing a lot more residential development going back towards the downtown area. And we've got the Friary project. We've got other projects in the near downtown area, and I think we have to be thinking forward, thinking that people don't want to be living on big lots out on the outskirts or that. They want to be down near the downtown where things are happening now. And so I think we have to give that due consideration at the same time. So that's all I'm asking. That's, you know, this is your folks' deal here. But again, I express my opinion based on the feedback I'm getting from the citizens in my area, and that's what they want to see. That's what they're asking for. Thank you.
Return to regular order?
We're returned, yes. Okay.
Just, can I make a comment? May I make a comment on
Can we?
the last speaker?
I think we still,
It's still open then.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Sir, you mentioned something about there aren't a lot of car accidents there.
That's true.
How do you get car accidents on vacant houses, vacant garages, and, I mean,
My
this is,
experience goes back 36 years.
it's a good
When it
thing.
was, in fact, I've been in some of those houses on
You
calls.
need to address the chairs.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
You need to address the chairs.
Lost my
Just
head.
the reason that I can see, because there's no traffic coming out of those 5 driveways. And that's one of the main things, is the traffic on that street. And yes, it's 30 miles an hour. I don't have the figures as what the traffic count is, but it's not like a residential area at all. I mean, it is really busy, so.
27,000.
27,000 a year.
Per day.
Up above.
Per day.
Okay.
And if I could, in response, I would just point one block west. You have a very more commercial or retail area, a lot more traffic in and out. There's no problem with crashes. Okay? So, I mean, if there was, the city would certainly be addressing it.
Unfortunately, one block west is also a vacant building, the Wildwood Galleries.
Well, I guess, I'm sorry, I'm referring to from Roosevelt Street, where you have the Christ Oil, you have the Bellin building, you've got that strip mall, a little mini mall, and you got several other businesses and all that down through there. And there's just, yeah, be careful, but there's no issues with traffic crashes.
Okay, we'll return to regular order of business. Any further discussion among staff?
Well, I'm gonna give you my opinion on it. I think, I've heard good things about Mr. Golden's business, and, I don't question, that you're trying to do the right thing for your business. I think that in planning, we try to look at things long-term, and, what's the best for an area or, property long-term. And it's hard to know. I mean, we can say, maybe 10 years from now, it'll still be sitting there and, still have residential properties when there might be a higher use. But, I can tell you that I represent parts of Main Street, parts of University Avenue, and they're all streets that have some old single-family homes along with businesses. And, I know that we frequently see people wanting to open used car lots on portions of any of those streets because the land is relatively cheap. There's some unused land. Traffic there is there. But, I know from my own district, people think that we have enough used car lots. And is it the highest and best use of the property? Well, I think the point that was made that, okay, you got residential property that currently has a value of $550,000. Is a parking lot, a blacktop parking lot for auto sales, is that going to increase the value for the city? Probably won't. Now, obviously, the problems on this street, as on many of the streets, like University, Main, and so on, are that you're not likely to get single-family residential development there. That's not the vision. I don't think. But we do engage our neighborhood associations to try to look at a long-term vision of what they'd like to see in their neighborhood, what services they think would be desirable. And I'll tell you, in the nearly 4 years I've been on the city council, I haven't had anybody say, well, we would like another used car lot in our neighborhood. I don't care what street it's on. And no offense to Mr. Goldman, but they do seem to mushroom all over the place. And so, I've listened to what Alderman Galvin has said. I've listened to what the Neighborhood Association has said. And I'm not going to support a change in the comp plan. I know development takes a long, long time to get the desirable type of development, but that's what we're here for with planning, is to look at things long-term, what's desirable, in the very distant future. It's not necessarily what we'd like to see there a year from now or 5 years from now, but long-term, what is our vision? And is it a development that the community needs more of? Is it something that is desirable on these streets, or could we do better? And so I guess you know, I think like people have said here, there are pros and cons, and you have to kind of weigh it out, but I'm going to support the staff's recommendation at this point.
Commissioner Hanson.
All right, so my only hesitation, aside from the possible historic building in the back, is the long-term change in the comp plan, because right now we're looking at this specific development, but if we change the comp plan, it could be something else 20 years from now. You know, as far as those buildings that went up on Walnut, because we're comparing that area to that, those duplexes are beautiful. It's not the same because it's not a through street. It's not, I mean, it dead ends at East High School, and the traffic is not like it is on East Mason. I think that what I've heard from the people who are supporting it is that he does nice things. He's really done nice things with the properties he's already owns and is working with. I feel like there are just lots of other blighted areas of East Mason that we could be focusing on if we're saying okay to this, which I think could end up looking nice, and then we have a gazillion other places on East Mason that we could focus on, because I feel like there's a fair amount of blighted properties on there. I personally think that it would be a nice addition to that neighborhood. You know, is it the best, highest use? No. Would I love mixed use? Yes, but I think that it's been vacant for so long. I feel like I could go with changing the comp plan at this point for this specific development.
Thank you. Yes.
I'd like to weigh in if I could. Just a staff person, but also a person who's lived in the neighborhood for close to 50 years. Has taken that stretch. In fact, I went to that grade school before they tore it down. I was listening to Mr. Govin's comments, and I thought, you know, this development, you know, sounds like it could be a good deal. And then you got up again. And I think your tone with regards to that neighborhood, and I got a really bad feeling about how you think that neighborhood is. Which brought me back to my original concern was once we change the zoning, or we change the zoning, we change the zoning. So all of those lovely things that neighborhoods don't want could go there once the zoning is changed. And that concerns me, because my fantasy for Mason is not a used car lot or parking lot. I'm not going to give Bellin either. I don't think there should be parking along that stretch either. And you're absolutely right. The stuff that's to the west, I walked home from your meeting and I walked down Mason, and I agree with you. We need to redevelop that whole stretch of Mason, but not with parking lots and used car lots, with higher use that I think is more neighborhood. So our recommendation is still not to change the comprehensive plan or the zoning for those reasons.
Thank you. Well, Commissioner Lespecki.
My dad always told me the bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And at this point in time, we're looking at something, I've heard 11 years, I've heard 20 years, possibly this could change. Is this the proper use of that property? I don't really see any projected visions, I hear, of people building houses and moving into that area. And I judge that on the fact that as an alderman for 10 years, on the east side of Green Bay, I lived with and worked with the greatest development of new houses in the city of Green Bay, and they weren't building them on Mason Street. Will they ever build them on Mason Street? I don't know. But I watched big subdivisions develop, I watched homes be built, I watched homes and housing complexes go in there, and they're filling them up right now. I looked at the development over on basically by Bear Creek. That development is almost filled already. Now, do you think any of these people, yeah, maybe they're a little bit higher end houses, but do you think any of those people are really going to be building down on the street? And somebody just said the fact that perhaps we should change that whole street all the way from probably Webster to Maine. I mean, wow, we've lost it over there already probably, folks, but I gotta stick by my information I have. I do not see the pie in the sky of doing anything with this, and the proof is there that nobody's ever done anything with it already. And we've got these houses that are just sitting there falling apart, and nobody's doing anything about that. And yes, we got a pie in the sky offer that they're gonna do something about it, but until I see that, maybe my opinion would change. But I gotta stand by my convictions, basically, and I think that we've got enough properties out there that are going nowhere. And some of them took forever to get going. Look at the Webster, the school down in Webster. Took years for that thing just sitting there. And, you know, we got to keep our tax base up. We also got to work with what we have. We can't dream that maybe this will happen, maybe that will happen. Folks, this has not happened here. We could dream forever that it's going to happen. And I just got to believe the gentleman, he says, heck, I wouldn't be a bit surprised maybe in the years to come if that ever goes that way. He'll build a great big luxurious building there, maybe a rental property or some doggone thing or whatever. And you're entirely right. You can't build a hotel or a motel or anything for less than, millions. I mean, 5 million is nothing. It's not even nothing in the pot, basically, to do it. And homes, residential homes on a busy street like that, come on, get serious. I live on a street right now that's a county road and a back street. And our biggest problem right now is speeding. Crotch rockets go by my house continually at 90 to 150 miles an hour. That's what you get on the little back streets that don't. So it's dangerous as hell to even live there. It's dangerous as hell to pull out of your driveway. Driveways are dangerous. And I fight that all the time. I'm very, very concerned about somebody pulling out of their driveway someday, or one of the crotch rockets coming, because we're pretty close to the road. Our homes are really close to the road. And I'm just concerned they're gonna lose it one of these days. They're not gonna kill themselves, but they're gonna kill somebody that are in their homes, and they're gonna burn them out. So I live with that. I also live with seeing all the development that has been going on in District Number 1. And damn proud of it. And it is just filling up with new homes, and it always has. When we were going through the period of time a few years back when nobody else was building anywhere, my district grew by 10,000 people. The mayor will never admit that, but I said, you say that each alderman represents 10,000 people? He says, hell, mine has doubled since I've been in there. And it was a hell of a lot of work going through all this development. That's where your development's going. And it's reaching out further. And not only is it reaching out further, but it's leaving Green Bay, and it's not going down to Mason Street. It's going out to Bellevue. It's going out to De Pere. That's where the building's going on. And you know why they're going there? Because of this particular thing right here. We have to be more forward-thinking in our thinking, basically. And bird in hand, we're through in the bush. Are we going to grab for something? I'm not happy with sitting here and maybe second-guessing that it ain't going to work. And folks, the other thing I just got to add to is we can sit here and discuss this all damn night, but we're just in a mode right now. Just he said, she said, and I can say better than you and all that, but those are my feelings. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, my own personal feeling is I like what he's looked at here, what he's done with the plan. I like the fact that there's no extra egress or egress onto Mason. I like the fact that he's getting out of the houses. But having said that, I still am not thrilled about the parking lot. I tend to agree with Mrs. Van Wig that we can do better. And I agree, once you change the zoning, it's changed. And I don't think this is the best. Is it good? Yes, I think it's a good idea. I don't think it's the best idea. And I am willing to wait. Because I think the neighborhood deserves better. And I think the residents, according to Alderman Galvin, the residents are not supportive of this. So I don't think I'm going to be able to support it either. So I'm going to also recommend denial. But I'll make the motion that we deny this request.
I'm not gonna make it.
I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to deny the request. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of denial, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
So we have
3 to 4. 3 nay.
3 opposed and 3 for.
As a city council.
Can I vote?
That's where it belongs.
And city council meets when?
Tuesday?
It's not next Tuesday, it's the Tuesday after.
Oh, because it's Halloween.
November 7th.
Next Tuesday is Halloween.
I don't know the calendar.
November 7th.
November 7th.
That sounds right. And so what happens here is that there will be a report to the council that the plan commission was tied on it. Yeah, the 7th of November.
It's election day, you're gonna have a city council meeting?
Gee, I don't know. I don't know. But you can call the city clerk's office and find out for sure when that meeting will be held. But there would be a report to the council that basically states the commission had a tie vote. And the whole city council would make a final decision.
We'll send out a notice after this meeting.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Director's update.
I do not have one.
Like that.
I like that, I'll make it short and sweet.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Move to adjourn.
That's it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.
So hot. Sorry, she's, well, this baby is like first. Sorry, she has stinky. She has 25 days.